Welcome to my channel. There's a kind of silence that doesn't just make her curious, it makes her crave. Not because you're playing games, but because you've stepped into a different kind of power, a darker, quieter power. The kind of silence that doesn't beg to be understood, but demands to be felt. It's not cold, it's controlled. And that control, that's what captivates her. Because in a world full of noise, the man who doesn't overshare, who doesn't chase, who doesn't explain, stands out. In this video, we're diving deep into 10 reasons your silence becomes the very thing she can't stop thinking about. We'll explore how this kind of presence, rooted in discipline, composure, and inner peace, mirrors the calm strength of a Stoic man. This isn't about manipulation. It's about mastery, and once you understand it, everything shifts. Let's begin. When you stop explaining yourself, number one, when you stop explaining yourself. The moment you stop trying to explain yourself, everything changes. You're no longer defending, no longer over-communicating. In that space, it gets filled by her thoughts, her doubts, her emotions. When you constantly explain yourself, you're unintentionally telling her that her opinion of you matters more than your own. You're trying to manage her perception, control the narrative, and keep everything smooth. But here's the truth. Control kills mystery. And mystery is what keeps a woman intrigued. When you stop explaining, stop justifying, you stop placing her judgment above your self-respect. That shift is subtle, but it's powerful. Stoicism teaches us not to secretions through over-explaining. It reminds us that true strength comes from knowing who we are, acting from principle, not emotion. That kind of presence doesn't chase attention, yet somehow it commands it. Why? Because it's calm, grounded, unshaken. And to a woman who's used to being pursued and constantly reassured, that silence becomes something she can't decode. The quiet confidence you carry, it doesn't vanish. It lingers in her mind. Imagine this. She sends a passive-aggressive text, expecting your usual long reply, your breakdown of what you meant and how you didn't mean to upset her. But this time, nothing, or just a short, calm response. You're not angry, you're just not engaging the same way anymore. Suddenly, she's not in control of the emotional flow. She's wondering, did she go too far? Why didn't he respond like he used to? That's silence. It becomes louder than any paragraph you could have sent. It's not neglect. It's Sue, reclaiming your emotional energy. So you choose to respond by not over-explaining, not defending, not drowning in words. You choose stillness, and in that stillness, you create presence. You're showing her that your peace is not up for negotiation, that you don't need to be understood to feel secure. That's what pulls her in. That's what makes her addicted. She begins to associate your silence not with distance, but with depth. The more she leans in, trying to figure you out, the more she realizes how rare it is to find a man who doesn't overshare, over-apologize, or over-explain. A man who can hold space without scrambling to fill it. So next time you'll feel the urge to explain yourself, pause. Ask yourself, am I saying this to be clear or to be liked? Because when your clarity comes from within, you stop needing validation. From her reaction, you become the calm in the chaos, the mystery in the noise. And that's the kind of silence she doesn't run from. That's the kind that haunts her. Number two, the mystery of emotional distance. You're calm, you're composed. You don't rush to fix things when she pulls away. And that distance, it doesn't make you colder. It makes you harder to read. That's the beauty of Stoicism. It can feel deeply but still remain steady. And when a man becomes emotionally grounded, his absence doesn't feel like a game. It feels like a shift in the air, and she feels it. It's that kind of silence that unsettles her. Not because you're ignoring her, but because you're no longer emotionally available on demand. You're not chasing. You're not trying to prove your worth. You're simply being gentered, unshaken. It creates a tension she didn't expect. When most men would crumble under her silence or overcompensate with attention, you lean into your own stillness. That emotional distance becomes magnetic. It makes her question what you're thinking, if you still care, or if you've outgrown the need to explain yourself. That uncertainty, that's what makes her addicted. Think about it. When a man lives by his values, when his peace is not for sale, he becomes unpredictable in the best way. A Stoic doesn't react to every shift in emotion. He observes, understands, but he doesn't spiral. And ironically, that calm detachment draws her in more than any confession ever could. You're no longer giving her the script. She has to imagine the lines herself. This is what I call the dark silence. It's not bitter. It's not passive-aggressive. It's rooted in presence, in inner strength. She can't label you, can't decode you, because you've stopped performing. And in that mystery, in that emotional restraint, she starts replaying your words, your energy, the way you made her feel safe yet distant all at once. She begins to crave the clarity she once overlooked. It's not about manipulation. It's about respect for yourself. And when you hold that frame, her curiosity turns into longing. She doesn't just miss you. What she can't understand anymore. That, my friend, is the quiet power of a Stoic man. And if that part hits something deep, take a moment. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about becoming hard to forget. When your Solent speaks from strength, not spite, it leaves an imprint far more lasting than words ever could.
No.
Before we move into the next layer of this dynamic, I want to hear from you. What part of this message resonated most with you? Drop your thoughts in the comments, or simply type, "Quiet strength leaves deepest echo." And if you're feeling the value here, don't forget to like the video. It helps more men find this mindset. Let's keep going. Silence after disrespect isn't revenge, it's self-respect. Number 3, silence after disrespect isn't revenge. It's self-respect. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't send long texts. You simply withdrew. That's not punishment. It's boundaries. That's a man who protects his peace like it's sacred. Seneca once said, "He who is brave is free." Away quietly after binds, that's real bravery. That's the silence that echoes with dignity. See, there's a difference between silence that's bitter and silence that's disciplined. You didn't disappear to make her feel abandoned. You walked away to remind yourself who you are. You chose stillness over chaos. That's where the magic begins. Because when a woman senses that you're no longer reacting, no longer needing to prove anything, she doesn't feel your absence like an empty space. She feels it like a presence. It's a presence that's heavy, dignified, and impossible to ignore. This is the dark silence that draws her back in. It's not with words, but with weight. You're no longer a man begging for clarity, no longer stuck in emotional negotiation. You're the man who's found clarity in solitude. The moment she senses you've stopped explaining is the moment she starts overthinking. She replays the disrespect. The moment she tested your patience and suddenly realizes she ain't just lose your attention. She lost access to a man who is grounded, calm, and steady. A Stoic man knows that reaction gives away power. So instead, a flooding anger guide him. He leans into discipline. He walks away, not to wound, but to honor his peace. You're not trying to teach her a lesson. You're simply done accepting treatment that doesn't reflect your standards. That's what pierces deeper than any lecture or emotional outburst ever cowled. She starts to miss not just you, but the version of herself she was when she was around you. She remembers the man who didn't flinch, didn't beg, didn't break under pressure. The memory becomes addictive because Mosman tried to fix. Most men try to be understood. But you let your silence do the speaking. And it says everything with calm conviction. I won't stay where I'm not respected. That's Stoicism in action. It's not detachment from emotion, but the strength to master it. The courage to walk away without needing grief. The discipline to say nothing. When your soul already knows the answer, and in a world full of noise, that kind of silence is unforgettable. That's why she can't stop thinking about you. Not because you left, but because you left with your self-respect fully intact. Number 4, she can't read you. And that's why she can't forget you. She can't read you. And that's why she can't forget you. You don't overshare. You don't try to convince her of your worth. And suddenly, she starts trying to figure you out. A Stoic man keeps his inner world private, not as a tactic, but as a discipline. You're not cold, you're composed, and that makes her feel something she doesn't feel. With others, uncertainty. And from that uncertainty comes obsession. Because when she can't fully access you, her mind doesn't rest. It loops. It replays. She wonders what you are thinking, how you feel, if you've moved on, or if you ever cared at all. That's the power of mystery. Most men give it away too easily. You didn't. You remained centered. You didn't fill the silence with explanations. You didn't send a long message to defend your position or prove your point. You didn't beg for understanding. You simply let your actions speak and your distance breathe. In that silence, it wasn't empty. It was loaded with presence. It forced her to sit with her own thoughts, her own doubts, her own longing. That's when your image starts living in her head, not because you forced it there, but because she couldn't pin you down. Stoicism teaches that mastery of the self is more powerful than mastery of others. And that's what you did. You didn't try to control her emotions. You'd simply held your ground. You accepted that if something is meant to stay, it will return. And if it doesn't, your peace is still intact. You don't need Tobe decoded, explained, or validated to feel whole. That's rare. That's magnetic. That's what makes your silence so dark. It's not angry, it's calm. It's not desperate, it's dignified. She remembers your restraint. She feels the weight of your absence because you didn't chase, because you didn't collapse under the pressure of needing to be understood. And now that emotional space becomes a vacuum. She starts to wonder if she misjudged you, if she lost something real. If maybe, just maybe, you were the one man who didn't fall for the illusion of control. You didn't just walk away. You vanished into the quiet like a Manuel, answers only to his own standard, and that haunts her. Your presence is felt stronger in your absence. Number 5. Your presence is felt stronger in your absence she once overlooked. Your presence took it for granted, but now she feels through it of you not being there. Why? Because you're not sending reminders of your existence. You're not begging to be remembered. You've stepped into something rare. A quiet strength that doesn't chase, doesn't plead, and doesn't prove. And that silence, it doesn't vanish. It haunts. Think about it. And you were always there. Always was, spanding, always showing up. No matter how she treated you, she felt secure. Not in a good way, but in a way that made her complacent. But now, the energy has shifted. You stopped filling the space. You stopped softening every moment of tension with reassurance. And suddenly, she's left with silence. It's not the kind that feels empty, but thinking that feels heavy. It's because your presence used to be her comfort, and now her absence is her discomfort. A Stoic man trusts that what's meant for him will remain, and what isn't, he releases. He doesn't grip tightly, toe hat slips through his fingers. He lets go with grace, because he knows that dignity speaks louder than desperation to that calm detachment. It lingers. It pulls her back in thought when she's alone. It shows up in the way she scrolls through old texts, wondering how you became so distant without saying a word. Your absence creates a space no one else can fill. Because it wasn't just your body she lost. It was the energy of a grounded, disciplined man, the one who didn't act out of insecurity, the one who didn't need constant validation, the one who could sought in silence and still be whole. That's the version of you she misses, the one who never needed her but once chose her. And now she wonders if that door is closed for good. She may not say it. She may not even fully understand it. But deep down, your absence has more weight than your presence ever did when she didn't value it, and that's what draws her in, not noise. Not chaos, but stillness of a man who walked away without slamming the door. The dark silence that makes her addicted because it reminds her of everything she couldn't find in anyone else. Oh, that Kindhoff silence doesn't fade. It lingers in her thoughts in the quiet moments when she reaches for her phone and realizes you're no longer on the other end. It's not just absence, it's impact. And if you've ever wondered whether your detachment is felt, trust me, it is. So take a moment to reflect on this kind of strength. The strength to walk away not in anger, but in calm self-respect. Leave a comment and share your thoughts, or simply type "distance reveals my worth." I'd love to hear what this made you think about. Now let's move forward, Bess. The silence isn't done speaking yet. Number 6, you become the standard. She become the standard she can't replace. You didn't chase. You didn't crumble. You handled conflict like a man who strained for emotional war and won. Every man she meets gets silent like compared to you. Why? Because you showed her what discipline looks like, what emotional control feels like. And once a woman sees that, it's hard to go back, tachos.
Yes.
She didn't expect your silence to be so steady. She thought you'd reach out eventually, maybe to argue, maybe to beg, but you didn't. You didn't need Toba because you weren't operating from fear or pride. You were grounded, still present in your absence. That's what set you apart. You weren't cold, you were composed. And that difference, it's unforgettable. While other men may talk louder, chase harder, or try to impress her with words, your calm restraint said everything without saying a word. You didn't disappear to teach her a lesson. You stepped back to protect your peace. That distinction is everything. A Stoic man doesn't detach to manipulate. He detaches to realign with his values. You didn't walk away emotionally. You walked inward toward strength, toward clarity. Now, picture her on a date with someone new. He might be nice enough, but when things don't go his way, he gets reactive. He raises his voice. He overshares. He needs something from her. That moment, she remembers you. The man who didn't flinch in discomfort, who didn't need to dominate the moment to feel seen. That emotional gravity you carried. It wasn't just attractive, it was grounding. Now she's aware of emotional. Stability looks like, it's that awareness. It's a curse for any man who comes after you. She'll keep looking, hoping Sumi Niels can offer that same feeling of depth, that same sense of calm. But must want even come close. Because what you gave wasn't just affection, it was structure. It was the unshakable presence of a man who doesn't beg, doesn't perform, doesn't break. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." That's what your silence did. It proved you didn't need her validation, feel valuable. And that kind of self-assuredness, it plants a seed of admiration that keeps growing even in your absence. That's why she can't replace you, because you didn't just touch her heart. You shifted her standard. Stillness that makes her spiral. Number 7. Stillness that makes her spiral. While you're out living, improving, moving, growing, she's replaying, rechecking, wondering. In your silence, it makes her spiral. Not because you're cruel, but because she misread your strength. Epictetus taught that true freedom comes from within, and you found that. She's just normalizing. She lost something rare. She expected you to react, to plead, to explain yourself just enough so she could feel in control again. But instead you withdrew into stillness, not with bitterness, not with anger, but with clarity. And that's what unsettles her most. Was ready for drama. She wasn't ready for your peace. Because your silence isn't empty. It's filled with self-respect. It's the quiet that follows acceptance. And in that acceptance, you chose yourself. You're innate. Watching her stories. You're not lurking in her inbox. You're not leaving digital breadcrumbs. And because of that, she feels the absence differently. It's not just that you're gone. It's that you're gone without trying to be remembered. And that shakes her because deep down she knows. Men don't usually do that unless they've grown past needing the outcome. Unless they've found something deeper. Discipline, clarity, freedom. That's where the Stoic in you comes alive. You're not cold. You're centered. You're not detached from feeling. You've just learned not to be controlled by it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." And that's what your stillness radiates, an unspoken strength. It whispers, I don't need closure. I don't need to be understood. I just need peace. And here's the thing. She's now the one doing the emotional labor, wondering if you ever cared, wondering if you've moved on, wondering what it means that you've gone so quiet. But you're not. playing games. You're simply not interrupting her process anymore. Back and let nature do its work. That's the kind of man she can't forget. Not because you chased her, but because you didn't need to. So while Chess scrolls through memories and second-guesses everything, you're building. You're evolving into someone even she might not recognize anymore. The man she thought she could push away has become the man whose stillness echoes louder than any words, and that's what makes her spiral. It's not just the silence, but the power behind it. The more she talks, the more you say without speaking it, the more she talks. The more you say without speaking, she texts, she vents, she questions, and you reply not with emotion, but with clarity, with presence. You're not competing for the last word. You're letting your silence carry the weight. That kind of restraint, that's Stoic elegance. And to her, it's maddening in the most unforgettable way.
Because
here's what she doesn't understand yet. When you don't rush to explain, when you don't try to correct her perception, or kiss her approval, you're not being distant. You're being deliberate. While she floods the space with words, hoping to provoke a crack in your calm, you respond with stillness. It's not the kind-off silence that's meant to hurt, but the kind that reflects strength, like Epictetus said. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it, that matters. And you don't react. You respond, but only when necessary. You'll conserve your energy. You protect your peace. You don't hand over your emotions like cheap currency. You've trained yourself to sit with discomfort without need to resolve it instantly, and that unnerves her more than any argument ever could. Eventually, she starts feeling something she didn't expect. Disarmed. Not because you yelled, not because you ghosted, but because in a world where everyone scrambles to be heard, your quiet confidence feels dangerously rare. She starts reading the lines, searching for meanings in the spaces you leave untouched. And the more she talks, the more she reveals her own restlessness, her own confusion, her own need for control. Meanwhile, you've already released the need to be understood. You're not building your identity around her reactions. You're not trying to prove your worth through explanations. That's where your power lies. The truth is, your restraint becomes the loudest statement in the room. You say more with a pause than others say in 1,000 words. And that pause, it starts to echo in her mind. She begins to spiral. Not because you hurt her, but because she can't figure you out. She can't shake the feeling that you're no longer playing her game. And when a man like you walks away from the emotional chow sand doesn't flinch, she starts to crave the gravity of your presence all over again. That's the dark silence that makes her addicted. It's not manipulation, it's mastery. Mastery over your mind, over your impulses, over your need to always respond. And once she realizes you're no longer reacting, no longer reaching, no longer revolving around her emotional weather, that's when the shift happens. That's when your silence becomes the loudest voice in her world. 9. You moved on without the announcement tantance. There was no farewell speech, no post-breakup breakdown. You simply exited. And that lack of reaction, that unsettles her more than any drama ever could. Because when a man truly moves on, he doesn't make noise. He makes moves. And now, your life is proof of that. Quietly, steadily, you shifted your energy inward. You didn't rush to defend your worth or clarify your intentions. You didn't try to win the narrative. You just let go with no fireworks, no warnings, and that silence. It's louder than any confrontation she was bracing for. She expected closure or maybe chaos. But what she got was something much more haunting. Nothing. No text, no reaction, no follow-up. And in that nothingness, her thoughts start chasing what they once ignored. Suddenly, your absence becomes a presence. Presence that now lives in the back of her mind, showing up when she least expects it. While you're focused on your purpose, reading, working, improving, she's scanning the emotional static, trying to pick up a signal from you that no longer exists. That's the silence that turns into addiction. The space where she used to have access and now finds only the akuf, your self-control. Stoicism teaches us that a man doesn't control others. He only controls himself. So instead of proving your worth through words, you proved through detachment. Like Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy, embodiate. And that's exactly what you did. You moved on, not to provoke a reaction, but because it was aligned with your inner peace. And when a man chooses peace over pride, growth over resentment, he becomes unforgettable in a way no apology or final conversation ever could. She might not show it. She might pretend she's unfazed. But make no mistake, she notices. She notices that you didn't flinch, that you didn't come crawling back, that you didn't give her the power to define your closure. And know the stillness you left behind speaks louder than anything you could have said. That's what keeps her circling the memory of you. Not drama, not bitterness, but the haunting realization thought. You disappeared with grace, not spite. Because you didn't need a staccato declare your departure. You just became the man she never truly figured out and now can't stop thinking about. That, my friend, is the dark silence. The psyche doesn't beg to be remembered, but is impossible to forget. The quiet that becomes her obsession. Number 10. The quiet that becomes her obsession. You didn't explain. You didn't argue. You simply left her with a question, and that's what haunts her. The words you didn't say. The closure you didn't offer. Because silence is louder than drama. It's not emptiness. It's depth, and now she's addicted to the silence that only you know how to create. She don't expect that. She thought you'd react, that you'd chase, explain, or at least try to clear the air. But instead, you became what few men are brave and ought to be. Still, while she threw words into the wind, hoping for a response, Yub came the absence that filled the room. In that silence, it unsettled her. Not because it was cold, but because it was unfamiliar. Because it forced her to confront Watch. Never had to before. The possibility that she lost a man who didn't need closure to move forward. The truth is, a Stoic man doesn't speak to prove his worth. He lets his actions do the talking, Seneca once said. No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. You proved yourself not through words, but through your calm detachment. You didn't crumble. You didn't explain your pain. You just walked through it silently and let your growth become the answer she'd had to expect. Now, every new man she meets gets silently compared to you. Bakas. Of what you said, but because of what you didn't. Because in a world where everyone scrambles to be heard, you became unforgettable by being the one who didn't shout for attention. You didn't disappear out of pride. You disappeared because you found peace in your own presence. And that kind of emotional power, it doesn't fade. It haunts. It lingers. She replays your silence like a riddle she can't solve. She wonders what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and why after all the noise you've remained completely disturbed. That stillness, that quiet strength, it becomes magnetic. Not in a desperate way, but in a way that reveals how rare you are. Slowly, without realizing, she becomes addicted. Not to the man who once chased her, but to the version of you who chose self-respect over reaction. Who chose to walk away with dignity rather than make a scene. Because real power isn't loud, it's calm. And it's that calm, the one she couldn't shake, that's now echoing through her thoughts long after the words have faded. And that is the quiet occlusion truth. It's the kind of silence that doesn't scream for attention, but settles into her memory like gravity. You didn't need to prove anything. You didn't need touches. You just became still. And in that stillness, you became Fergal. A man rooted in discipline, self-respect, and calm detachment is not only rare, he's impossible to replace. And that's why she can't stop thinking about you. Because what haunts her now is not what he said, but everything you didn't. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to hit that like button to let us know. Drop a comment below. What parteth the hardest? What silence in your life has become your strength? And if you're ready to keep growing and evolving, check out the recommended videos on screen now. I'll see you in the next one. Stay grounded, stay silent, stay powerful.